Hello, my name is James Pressman, and this is my project on the Sony Pictures hack for my Intro to Cybersecurity class. Sony, or more officially known as Sony Pictures Entertainment, is the United States film studio arm of Japan's bigger Sony Corporation. The United States arm is based in Culver City, California, and on November 24, 2014, their employees logged on to find that their computers were frozen by a group who called themselves the Guardians of Peace. Over the following weeks, chaos ensued. The attackers leaked unreleased films, thousands of executive emails, and personal data on tens of thousands of their current and former employees, of which include their social security numbers and medical records. They then deployed destructive malware that wiped out Sony systems and knocked its network offline for days. Their motive was clear, though. Sony was about to release the movie titled The Interview, which is a comedy about assassinating North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And North Korea had already called its release an act of war. On December 19, 2014, a month later, the FBI formally attributed the attack to the North Korean government and based on the malware and infrastructure links to previous North Korean operations. Overall, this attack was destructive and driven by extortion. It combined data theft, public leaks, and threats of violence to punish a company for its creative content. And this mattered because it was the first time that a foreign government used a cyber attack to try to suppress speech inside of the United States. And it exposed just how fragile Sony's own security was. Their passwords were stored in plain text, sensitive employee data was left unencrypted. There was a clear need for more structured policy because before this, the United States in general had no real playbook for responding to an attack like this. After this event, however, the outlook shifted rapidly. This case established that the U.S. would publicly attribute attacks, sanction the countries behind them, and criminally charge individual hackers, even when their government couldn't really arrest them. Now, let's take a look at how the United States and North Korea see each other with this interaction. This case was a really big clash between incompatible perspectives. The United States saw itself as a defender of free speech and a victim of a surprised and unprecedented attack. They felt as though they needed to respond firmly without starting a war. And North Korea, on the other hand, saw itself as a sovereign state defending its leader's dignity against what they thought was an act of war of releasing the movie, The Interview. Then there's how the United States viewed North Korea. They saw them as a rogue regime who was willing to destroy a company's systems over a comedy film. Now, North Korea viewed the film and the United States response as psychological warfare. Officials even say that they appreciated the work of whoever carried out the attack. But overall, my assumption is that both sides were operating from completely incompatible views of what was reasonable. And that gap is exactly why this situation escalated so far. As someone who's educated on cyber risks and best practices, here's what I would implement to prevent this from happening again, or at least decrease the damage done. First, I would segment the network and keep scheduled offline backups, so that a single compromised computer won't cripple the entire studio like it did to Sony in this attack. Second, I'd encrypt and minimize keeping sensitive data on site, ending the practice of storing social security numbers, salaries, and passwords as plain text, completely unprotected files, which is exactly what turned this into a much bigger crisis than it needed to be. Third, I'd build a crisis response plan before the crisis hits. In the event an attack as catastrophic as this happens, there needs to be a guide on what to do. I would have a clear line to the FBI and CISA so that leadership isn't improvising security and safety decisions for the first time while under public threat. In retrospect, Sony's leadership should have treated the internal security warnings that were raised months earlier as urgent. All in all, prevention here is about basic cyber hygiene. Encrypt what matters, segment what you can, and have a plan before you need one. Thank you for watching my presentation. Here are my references.